Indonesian supporters of Barack Obama have created a statue of the 44th United States President.
Statue, as President Obama is set to receive the Nobel Peace Prize.
She depicts Obama as a young boy to help motivate younger generations.
We have great weather. God is with us. It's a coincidence that today President Obama is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo. So it's a very unique day to dedicate this event here.
We don't want your stinking war! It's not what we voted for!
We know that a majority of people in this country oppose this escalation in Afghanistan. We know a majority of these people in this country want the troops home now. They don't want to send more. They don't want another 30,000. They don't want to make this war, the escalation, be the legacy of the Obama administration.
Welcome to the America 20XY Week in Review. Today is Sunday, December the 20th, 2009. I am your host, Andrew Steele. Leading off our stories today, apparently we are now at war with Yemen. This is from ABC News on December 18th. Obama ordered U.S. military strikes on Yemen terrorists. On orders from President Barack Obama, the U.S. military launched cruise missiles early Thursday against two suspected al-Qaeda sites in Yemen, administration officials told ABC News in a report broadcast on ABC World News with Charles Gibson. One of the targeted sites was a suspected al-Qaeda training camp north of the capital, Sana'a, and the second target was a location where officials said an imminent attack against a U.S. asset was being planned. The Yemen attacks by the U.S. military represent a major escalation of the Obama administration's campaign against al-Qaeda. Now, from Press TV, we're getting a report on some of the other people other than al-Qaeda that were killed in this. This is from December 18th also. U.S. kills 63 civilians, 28 children in Yemen airstrikes. Yemen's Houthi fighters say scores of civilians, including many children, have been killed in the U.S. air raids in the southeast of the war-stricken Arab country. The Shia fighters on Friday reported the deaths of 63 people, including some 28 children, in the southeastern province of Abyan. Almost 90 people were also injured in the attacks by U.S. warplanes in the village of Bakazam, they added. Yemen's southern provinces have recently been the scene of U.S. airstrikes, which Washington claims to be aimed at uprooting an al-Qaeda cell operative in the Persian Gulf state. But the residents of the area dismissed the claims that al-Qaeda members are being targeted in the U.S. attacks, while a Yemeni lawmaker has also called for an investigation into the raids. The U.S. operation in southern Yemen comes on top of a joint Saudi-Yemeni military campaign in the country's war-weary north, where Sana'a's and Riyadh forces are engaged in fierce fighting against the Houthi fighters. The Houthis, who accuse the Sunni-dominated Sana'a government of discrimination and repression against Yemen's Shia minority, were the target of the army's off-and-on attacks before the central government launched an all-out fighting against them in early August. Saudi Arabia joined the operation later following alleged clashes between its border guards and the Houthis, carrying out regular airstrikes and ground incursions against the fighters. On Friday, the Houthis said over 160 missiles hit regions along the border with the neighboring kingdom, which they accuse of pounding civilians in villages within the Yemeni territory. The Saudis have conducted more than 70 air raids in less than 24 hours. And then Press TV has another article to go along with that. Saudi warplanes rained 1,011 missiles on Yemen. This was on December 19th. Houthi fighters say Saudi warplanes have fired some 1,011 missiles on the borderline with Yemen, and the Shia population is already under heavy state-led and U.S.-aided bombardment. The fighters also said on Saturday that the warplanes had carried out nearly 60 air assaults on the residential areas in the northern Al-Jabiri, Al-Dukan, and Al-Malahit districts. Saudi Arabia joined Sana's month-long fierce armed campaign against the Shia fighters in November. The Houthis are accused by the central government of breaking the terms of a ceasefire agreement by taking foreign visitors hostage. The Saudis, on their part, claim that the fighters had attacked one of their border checkpoints. Now, these last two reports came from Press TV, which is Iranian state media. So we never tell you how to think or how to feel about a certain issue. So look into it for yourself. Now, in other war-related news, we have this article from antiwar.com by Jason Ditz on December 18th. Eikenberry, U.S. to stay in Afghanistan long after 2011. Speaking at Afghanistan's foreign ministry today, U.S. Ambassador Carl Eikenberry sought to assure top diplomats that the war in Afghanistan would continue for a long time after 2011. Though Ambassador and retired General Eikenberry was seen at the forefront of the opposition to the latest escalation and an advocate of an exit strategy, he insisted today that the military commitment to Afghanistan won't end or decline and that the July 2011 date was flexible. In a separate radio interview, Eikenberry insisted that the U.S. had a long-term partnership with Afghanistan, would continue for decades, and that what was being sold to the American public was a withdrawal. Was really the seeds of a stronger, longer-term partnership. Though polls show the American public turning clearly against the continuation of the conflict, administration officials seem determined to convince their Afghan subordinates that the war is still open-ended, even as they tell Americans that it is winding down. Now, there were massive attacks in both Afghanistan and Iraq last week. Focusing on the Iraqi one for a moment, we have this article from Reuters on 12/17. Prime Minister, Iraq security forces involved in bombings. Baghdad, dozens of Iraqi security force members were involved in the attacks that killed up to 112 people in Baghdad last week, Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki said on Wednesday. There is widespread suspicion in Iraq that the police and armed forces have been infiltrated by militants, take bribes to allow insurgents to mount attacks, or may be colluding with militants to undermine Maliki before March 7th general election. A series of high-profile attacks on supposedly secure government targets have killed hundreds in recent months and eroded Maliki's ability to present himself as the man who turned around Iraqi security, a key plank of his election campaign. Maliki vowed he would not let ongoing insurgent attacks influence the polls. He said there were at least 45 members of the security forces involved in the December 8th attack. The network was a large one, 24 from one arm of the Iraqi security forces, 13 from another, and 8 or 9 from another, Maliki told a news conference without saying which branch of the security forces those involved came from. Maliki promised a reward of around $85,500 to anyone who alerted the government to car bombs before they detonate. The reward would get citizens involved in supporting security services and remedy its deficiencies, he said. Now this is interesting. It says later on in the article, no U.S. drawdown delay. Still, Maliki said the attacks would not delay the U.S. drawdown, echoing assurances from the U.S. administration that it will not alter plans to end combat operations by August 31st, 2010 and bring troop levels down to 50,000 by then. So they changed pullout to drawdown, and that's not exactly leaving Iraq now, is it? Like Obama promised during the campaign. So it'll still be a residual force of 50,000. So they're not planning on pulling out. They're going to draw it down once they feel that it's sufficiently conquered, and then stay there indefinitely. A week or so before this story came out where he's accusing members of the Iraqi security force of being involved in the plot, Maliki also blamed foreign support for Baghdad for the Baghdad bombings. So we have this article from antiwar.com by Jason Ditz on December 10th. Maliki blames foreign support for Baghdad bombings, vows more executions. Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki pointed for unnamed foreign backers as being behind yesterday's massive Baghdad bombings, which killed over 120 people and wounded many hundreds of others. Adding to the speculation, Interior Ministry spokesman Jihad al-Jabri claimed that 4 of the car bombings yesterday used C4 plastic explosives, which had originated from abroad, and blamed Syria, Saudi Arabia, or another country for tacit support for the attacks. Though Maliki hadn't singled out any specific nations this time around, after previous attacks, he blamed the Syrian government, and diplomatic relations between Iraq and Syria have continued to worsen since August. Prime Minister Maliki has promised a revamp of security strategies, but the only specific information he gave was a plan to execute more people accused of similar crimes, saying it would provide a deterrent effect. According to Amnesty International, over 900 Iraqis are already being held on death row, many of them on the basis of coerced evidence.